Alright, you guys, so no sci-fi adventure epic fantasy is complete without its token arachnid encounter, be it Eratog from the Harry Potter series, or Shelob from the Lord of the Rings series, or whatever the hell that nightmarish thing was at the end of Beyond Aquila Rift from the Love, Death, and Robots series. All these genres seem to have it, and The Mandalorian is no different. Now, after finally having this token arachnid encounter, I'm willing to say that they actually handled it pretty well. It wasn't necessarily the main focus of the entire story, and in fact, there was a lot of other things that happened that helped progress the overall story of The Mandalorian and the universe around it forward, and I really appreciated that. Now, before I get into any more spoilers, I wanted to give you guys the official spoiler warning so that you guys can go ahead and head out and do what you have to do to get caught up and then come back and join me here. So, here's the summary of the story. Our Mandalorian Din is able to get more information on the whereabouts of other of his kind, but before he travels there, he needs to bring this VIP with him with one caveat that might put them in serious danger. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get into it. Alright guys, welcome back to another TBG Trial by Gaming feature. I am your host, Nello, and on today's review I'm going to be breaking down The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2, Chapter 10, The Passenger. So as you guys remember in the last episode, as our Din character was leaving, the big reveal was that Boba Fett was watching him. So he has now been introduced as a big character. Big stuff. Now, in stark contrast to that episode, this chapter is a lot shorter. It's about 20 minutes shorter at 35 minutes, and it was a lot more claustrophobic and personal and just kind of a lot more mellow than that episode. That episode was very epic with a lot of fighting, while this episode was definitely a bit more, story driven, a bit more close encounters, right? So at the beginning of this episode, Din is still making his way back from Mos Pelgos back to Mos Eisley when he gets ambushed by about 4 bounty hunters. A fight ensues where he loses his speeder. He's able to land on his feet thanks to his jetpack, and he is able to get the upper hand on the first 3 before the 4th one puts him in a hostage situation with Baby Yoda. And after a quick trade for his jetpack, which he ends up using to kill that last bounty hunter, he's able to get everything back to safety, but has to walk the rest of the way to Mos Eisley. So he does make it back to Mos Eisley, at which point he is able to locate Pelimoto, the mechanic, at a cantina while she's playing cards against Dr. Mandible, which is this huge ant. Super weird. I don't know why this episode had a lot of focus on insects, but we basically see him, and after covering his bid against Peli, in which he loses, Armando is able to gain information on the whereabouts of potentially other Mandalorians, but in order to receive the full information, he has to wait in the waiting area where they dock all their ships. So Armando goes there. In the hangar bay, our character is approached by Peli again and lets her know on the estuary moon of Trask is where you're going to be able to find other Mandalorians, but in order to figure out exactly where they've been pinpointed at, you're going to have to bring a VIP with you to get there. And then we are introduced to the Frog Lady. Now, we're not given any other details about her name or her importance as a character. All we know is that she has now given the last set of eggs from her life cycle, and she needs to get it to her husband on Trask so that they are able to basically fertilize them and continue their lineage. Now, I don't know if it's because I love my mama, but for me, this was very important, and I was immediately invested in this character being able to come on the trip, but also surviving. And so, while hesitant, our Mando is okay with her coming along, at which point Peli lets him know. The one caveat, if she is coming, is the fact that they're not going to be able to travel at light speed. Now, they don't make it quite clear, and you kind of have to suspend your beliefs. I don't quite understand what traveling at light speed would hurt the eggs other than just to make things more difficult for Din, but reluctantly he accepts and they go ahead and launch out on their mission to get to Trask. Now, while our character Din is putting everything into autopilot, he does talk with the Frog Lady, at which point we realize that the Frog Lady and him have absolutely no common language that they both speak. So there is a communication bridge that they're not able to gap here. Now, while they're talking to each other, we see something that rubbed me the wrong way, and apparently it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way on the internet who have seen this episode. Our young baby Yoda basically goes up to the jar that has the Frog Lady's eggs in it, and he just starts chowing down, which is pretty insane. Now, like I said, it rubbed me the wrong way, because I want to see, this frog lady and her babies make it and obviously hatch and be born. And so to watch him eat them, I was just kind of like, not a good thing. But again, the Mando puts the Razor Crest into autopilot, finds Baby Yoda, stops him just in time, and then takes a quick nap, at which point they are rudely interrupted with his alarm system going on. And so basically at this point what happens is that two New Republic X-Wing pilots. Now, the two pilots that stopped in are two characters, one that we've seen before and one that you've probably seen before in another show. So the first one is actually the showrunner and producers, Dave Filoni, which we did see in that same episode 6 where they raid the prisoner transport at the very end. And his name here is Trapper Wolf. And then Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, who plays Carson Teva, and he is known from Kim's Convenience. So two pretty cool characters to see together, and one reprising their role, again showing us that the Republic will have reoccurring appearances in this whole show. Come upon the Razor Crest and stop them, not necessarily stop them, but are shadowing them and asking them for pings and, why their beacon isn't on, and if they've been in different parts of the sector, at which point Armando says, my ship is, a bit older, pre-Republic era, so I don't really need to do that. And they're like, well, you know what, do it anyway. And so after basically telling him, well, if you don't, we're gonna have to take you with us, he goes, no, it's okay, let me go ahead and turn on the ping. But once he does, they're kind of alerted to who he is. And one of the questions was whether or not he had been at this prisoner transport, and he had been at that prisoner transport in episode 6 where that one Republic guard was killed. And so once he hears this question, he knows he's kind of, he's been made, and it's really cool, right? He looks to his left, he looks to his right, and both of the X-Wing ships, they have their wings closed, but they open up, and each one has a cannon on it. So he's aware, all right, something big is about to happen. And they basically let him know, you got to come with us. And after a moment of pause, Din floors it and goes straight down into a planet. Now, it's an icy planet, and I wasn't quite sure what planet it was, but after doing a little bit of research, it was Maldo Kreis. Now, if you don't remember, Maldo Kreis is the opening season's planet that he is actually on. So the opener, season 1, episode 1, our pilot episode, the Mando is actually on that planet. So he makes a return back to that planet in this episode. So he floors it, he's going down through the atmosphere, they hit some ice clouds, and the Republic is still hot in his tail. So as they are racing down onto Maldo Kreis, they're, the Republic fighters are basically pleading with Din and just letting him know, hey, we don't want to hurt you, don't make us do this, just surrender, it's the best thing for us here. There's no need for this to get worse than it has to. And I kind of like that. I feel like if it would have been the Empire chasing him, they would have just immediately started shooting. So the fact that these guys are willing to try to, let's not say negotiate, but, are just trying to establish a bit of law and order rather than just outright blasting people is pretty cool. It's pretty nice to see. And again, it's a new factor because up until that point, I wanted to see them. And funny that the first time that we do see them, they're as the enemies of our Mando. So, again, something, different caveat for the episode. So they're basically racing through the canyons, and our Mando makes a desperate attempt to try to get away by going through this cave. And while he is able to shake the Republic pilots, He ends up crashing down on a slab of ice. Luckily, doesn't crash into the wall, but sadly does fall through the top of a cave and lands pretty low inside of it, basically destroying or at least opening part of the hole and making it difficult for them to even get out of there. One by foot, which really wouldn't matter because then they'd be in this barren, icy wasteland, and they can't really keep their ship super warm because the hull is breached. So then we see another very interesting part of the episode. So after Armando tells everybody strap in, we're basically gonna have to try to make it through the night. The the frog lady is not happy with this. And we get to see a little of ingenuity on her part. So there's this android on the ship that this frog lady is able to get the translator from its head and basically use it to speak for her in English, where she tells the Mando, hey, you promised safe passage of me and my kin, and you're not keeping your word. I heard that Mandos are people of their word, but maybe that's just a kid story. At which we see Baby Yoda look at Armando like, hey, she just attacked your honor. You better say something. And so Armando basically is like, damn it, okay. And so he goes outside and he tries to fix the Razor Crest. A portion amount of time goes by and our Baby Yoda comes out to get his attention to basically let him know Frog Lady just dipped. And so Mando, using the heat-seeking or the heat vision that he has on his helmet, is able to follow her signature of her footsteps to where she is. Now, the frog lady had found basically a hot springs in an icy cave. And so she's in there swimming with all her little baby eggs to keep them warm, obviously in the hot springs. And it's actually really funny. The little Baby Yoda tries to grab another one, and you just see from the outside a big hand of the Mando going, no, no. And so obviously with our little Baby Yoda not having anything to eat, he turns around and sees what else is in the area. Now, I immediately caught this, and I'm sure most people did. But as Baby Yoda is walking around, it looks like he's obviously walking around through a field of what looks like the eggs from the face huggers from the Alien series. And I was like, all right, they're already pretty fucked where they're at. And so Baby Yoda walks up to one of them, puts his hand inside and pulls out a little spider and eats it whole. And I was actually surprised. I was like, well, okay, that's one way to do it. At which point all the eggs start to tremble and our Baby Yoda starts hauling ass back to Mando. Mando turns around and realizes we're in a nest of something. And as they're trying to get ready to go, all the eggs start hatching, all these spiders start coming out, and I guess them being, hatching gets the attention of even bigger spider-like creatures that end up showing up. And so it's looking bad. And to make matters worse, this huge Razor Crest sized spider thing comes out of nowhere and it roars, and it is scary. So these boys know they got to get the hell up out of there, at which point a chase ensues. So they're running through the cave and Mando's shooting everything, not running out of bullets because, again, he has a blaster, right? He's blasting left and right. And the frog lady goes from actually running on both feet to doing what you would imagine a frog could do, and she starts jumping like a frog right on all fours, and she's actually pretty quick. She's able to outpace our Mando, and then they get cornered for a second, and finally our Mando does what I was expecting him to do, which was he activates the gauntlet that has a flamethrower on it, and then he incinerates a bunch of them. Now they get into a home stretch away in the cave, but that big spider monster from earlier is on top of them, on top of the cave, and is crushing down through it with its arms. So our Mando throws a couple of grenades, causes it to fall through the roof, and then that last grenade kind of scorches its face, and we see the big spider laying there, eyes open, mouth open, face scarred up, and we assume it's dead. So they make it all the way back to the Razor Crest, but remember the Razor Crest's hull is breached. So even though they are able to get inside of it, so are all the spiders. And so they basically do their best to try to get to the cockpit and try to close it up, but there's a lot of them, and some of them are able to get inside the cockpit, and they attack Baby Yoda. And this is again another moment where we underestimate the frog lady. She was strapped the whole time. She whips out a blaster and starts shooting the ones that are attacking Baby Yoda, at which point our Mando kind of is like, all right, hell yeah. And then shoots the rest of them with his flamethrower and is able to close the hatch. Now, he tries to get the Razor Crest off the ground, and just as he's starting to get it to lift up, the big fucking spider from earlier that we thought was dead jumps on top and starts actually breaking through the cockpit. And at this point, you're like, there's no way they're getting out of this. They probably don't have enough firepower, and it's pretty obvious that they're not going to be able to get their ship off with this big thing on top of it weighing down. And it just seems like it's all over. Or is it? So just as it seems like it's all over for them, we start seeing a lot of blaster fire, and it hits the big spider like 3 or 4 times before it goes down. And then we just hear a lot of blaster fire on the outside from what it sounds like at least 2 rifles. And so we're hearing a bunch of blaster fire, and our Mando starts to make his way outside, clearing out any more spiders inside the Razor Crest, and he makes it outside to see none other than, again, Dave Filoni and Paul Lee, which is Trapper Wolf and Carson Teva, respectively. And basically we have one more talk between them where Carson asks him if he was in fact one of the people that was on the prisoner transport, and Armando kind of deflects the question by asking if he's under arrest, and then Carson lets him know under normal circumstances we would, but these are trying times, and when you were on that ship you actually did put yourself in the line of fire to try to defend this guy, and even though you weren't able to save him, you did do what you could for it to be as civil as possible. For that reason, we will let you go and pretend that we didn't see you here. Armando tells him, okay, let's call it even and help me fix my ship real quick. And they go, how about you fix that ping instead and we won't destroy your ship. And then they leave, which I thought was very interesting considering they don't really know what position he's in or whether or not his ship can even fly, and by them just getting up and leaving, we can assume that they don't even know if he's actually going to survive. But Armando is in fact very resourceful, so he's able to basically fix the cockpit, right, from all the holes that the spider put on it, and then he is able to lift off and put it into limp mode to still get all the way to Trask, at which point he tells the frog lady and Baby Yoda, strap in, get comfortable, this is going to be a long ride. And what it ends with is Baby Yoda is on his lap. He turns around, he tries to look over at the frog lady. The frog lady clutches her jar a little tighter, and the little bastard turns around and pulls out another one of those frog eggs and eats it. And that's how the episode cuts out. So again, guys, this episode was definitely a bit smaller in scale and had a lot less characters in it, and was more claustrophobic, but I think it was really nice to see that variety considering how, again, big and epic and the fight scenes and everything that we saw in the first episode. And it keeps things kind of fresh for us to see something new every other episode, right? And so for me, this was an enjoyable episode, and while I'm not a big fan of the spider scenes, there's no other moment where you feel fear for the life of the main character than when they're fighting the main villain or a fucking spider. So overall, it was a good episode, new characters, and it was actually kind of cool to again see characters like Trapper Wolf back again, which leads us to believe that the Republic is going to play a greater role in future episodes. And again, the fact that we get to see that the Frog Lady makes it past one full episode and goes into the next, while also being more resourceful than I would have believed. Now, one last piece of information for you guys. Apparently, these spiders, we've seen them before in the Star Wars series of the Rebellion, Star Wars Rebels. And people were saying that this is basically a confirmation that we're going to see Sabine Wren, who is the main Mandalorian from that series. Basically, she has an encounter with them. So by us seeing these spiders in this episode is confirmation that later down the line, we will be seeing Sabine Wren. But overall, like I said, great episode, and I can't wait to see what's going to come in future episodes. So guys, if you do like this, I am still playing a little bit of catch up. I think it's episode 5 that's dropping this Friday, and I'm still finishing up reviews for episode 2, and I gotta do 3 and 4 before then if I can keep up with my current schedule. So if you guys do want to be a part of the journey, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will be leaving all my social media in the description below, including my Patreon if you guys would like to become a part of the Trial by Gaming community and help it grow. Until then, this is a TBG Trial by Gaming feature. I am Nello, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Deuces.